Okay, so you've made your macrame bracelet and now you want to make that wonderful sliding clasp, which is going to give you a bracelet that's got no metals in it if you don't use metal beads on the end. It's going to make it so that you can sell to people that are allergic to metals, you can gift to people that are allergic to metals, and it also makes it fully adjustable. You can change the size of this really easily, and then to fasten it, all we do is pull it like so. And then you've got a nice lovely fitted bracelet. You can make it fit perfect every time, so sizing isn't a big issue with this. So what you need is your macrame already made and done. The video for this is available separately, and there's also the video for this one here, which is very slightly different. You're also going to need a piece of thread, so around about the same gauge as you've already used. So this is a 0.8. This is actually a little bit finer, but it's all I could grab for the moment, but it will be fine. So, and this is a contrasting colour. You can, and I could have just used the same colour thread, but I thought you'd be able to see it a little bit better. So don't worry if you haven't got a different colour, it's absolutely fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to go across a corner. Okay, so we're going to use our macrame board. We're going to go across this corner. So I've gone 2 in, across and down. Okay, so we've got that one in. Then we're going to come across the opposite way with the other side of our bracelet. So we've got both of these. Let me just straighten that one out a little bit. We don't really want them to cross, so we can get them nice and smooth with each other. That's better. So now they're sat parallel to each other. Now this one, just curl it, doesn't matter if that crosses because it will be removed at the end. We're just going to pop an extra piece of thread in, so otherwise we won't be able to get this to actually move around. Now that's a 0.4, so I'm actually going to put 2 pieces of that in, like so. So I've got the same gauge as the thread that I've used. That actually makes far more sense. So I've got 8 mils of the contrasting thread, 0.8 mils, sorry, and my thread is 0.8 mil. Now I want to get a piece of scrap. So usually you end up with a nice long piece at the end of making your macrame bracelet. That is because you don't want to be ending on a tiny little piece. It's harder to do the macrame, and if you decide you want to add some more, you can't add into macrame, so definitely go that extra. So the other thing that you can do is, just to make life a little bit easier for you, because there's quite a bit of tension, you can, it doesn't have to be a cocktail stick, but I tend to just pop a cocktail stick underneath, and it just makes that gap a little bit easier to come in and out of. So I'm going to pop my thread underneath. So I've got about 40 centimetres here. I'm going to bring that together so that I know I'm in the middle. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can see. So we've got in the centre, and we're just going to do those square knots. Obviously we're working on a smaller area, so you're going to need to be making those loops a little bit smaller. So we're making our D shape across, and then we're going to go under everything, underneath that cross and up through the loop, just as we did our square knot in a previous video. I'm going to make the backwards D shape underneath everything, underneath that cross, and then up through the loop. And what we want to do is around about 8 square knots for a nice sized clasp, sliding clasp. It's also called a Solomans bar sliding clasp. So if you're ever looking for it, that's what you need to search for, a Solomans bar, and that's what you can describe it as well. So that's 2. I'm going to make another D shape and another backwards D shape under the cross, up through the loop. 3. And we're just getting a nice bit of tension on this. We want it to be quite tight, not so tight that it distorts, but just like when you're doing your bracelet, really, you just want it to fit nice and snug around that lazy strand. And through. Just keep working, just making sure you're doing each side of your knots, making that loop. So making that loop across, making sure that this thread goes over the top of the one that you just took across, and then under that cross and up through the loop. And don't get attached to your cocktail stick or anything you've popped in there, just to give you that bit more gap. You could just move that up to the other side if you wanted to give you a bit more space. It's just to lift it a little bit, just to make it a little bit easier. You're starting to, your thread will be starting to get shorter now, so it's get a little bit more tricky to work with. You could use a longer piece if you want to, but you usually have some nice decent lengths left from your macrame anyway, so I always like to utilise the leftovers. I'm just going to do this one and count how many we've got, because I've not been counting. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Perfect. So I've got my 8 square knots. There they are. So I can just take this off the board, just nice and carefully, because remember we've got no stoppers on anything at the moment, so it could just slide all the way off, but it should be fine. I'm just going to bob that one out of the way for a second. Okay, so we're just going to look at the ones that we've been using for the macrame. We don't want to cut anything else yet. We want to finish these ones off. So we're going to look at the one at this side. I'm going to move over and use my thread zapper. And we're just going to take that nice and short. And then we're just going to melt that into the side, just using the safety thread zapper. There we go, that's one side done. So the thread zapper just kind of melts it. So you can either use that to cut, or you can just cut that nice and short, so it just leaves that little bit free, and then you can use your thread zapper just to kind of melt that down and push it against the work. Just make sure you don't catch the work, and that will stop that from unraveling. So you can see that's nice and neat there. So then the next thing we need to do is we can pull out the red ones, or the opposite ones, which is why it's nice and easy to use a different colour, because then you can see, and then you should be able to just really nicely, easily slide this close, and it gives you a really nice finish. It's almost continuous. And then all you need to do is trim these and pop a little stop bead on the ends. So I'm just going to do that really quickly. It's just a matter of popping a bead on the end and tying a knot, and I will join you back and we'll have a look at our finished bracelet. So I've just added one bead on each side and just tied a really basic knot, nothing fancy, and then I can just take my thread zapper and cut that. There we go. And you can even just kind of just ball that end up a little bit, just to make sure that's never going to unfasten. And the other side. It's just a really basic knot. I will find a link for a thread zapper and pop it in the description below. So there we go. Always remember to put your safety back on your thread zapper. So there we go. We've got our beautiful sliding knot already on the end of my macrame. You can finish it with any sort of bead on the end. Just make sure you put something to stop it actually fully sliding off, and you'll be able to just make that fit any wrist size. So I'm going to pop that on next to my other one, and then I can just tighten it up by holding one side and pulling on the other. There we go. So that is how that lovely Solomans bar works, like so. So thank you very much for watching. Don't forget the video for both of these bracelets are on my YouTube also, so take a look at the rest of my channel. Make sure you subscribe, click that bell underneath the subscribe, and make sure you select all, and then you will never miss any of my new videos, which are mostly weekly, sometimes more than once a week. And I will see you again really soon.